Welcome back to the channel. We recently spent a couple days in the capital of Denmark, and we had a great time. We wanted to see as much of the city as we could in our 2 days here, so come along for our journey through this beautiful city.
Welcome to Copenhagen. It is a rainy day here, but we're not letting that get us down. We're walking around Copenhagen, and we're going to see what we can find. So our first stop is called the Kastellet, and it's a star-shaped fortress built in the 17th century, and it's actually still used as a military barracks, but it's open to the public, and it's free to enter, so we're going to see what's all here.
The Kastellet, or citadel, is a large, star-shaped fortress that is located on the north side of the city. It's actually one of the best preserved fortresses in Northern Europe. The Kastellet had its start in the early 17th century, when its predecessor was built to protect the harbor of Copenhagen. It was actually part of the bastioned fortifications built around the city around the same time, and many of these old fortifications can still be seen today.
So this fortress is actually still used, and it still has a moat.
Oh, that's what we're on.
Yeah, Katherine was wondering about the bridge. It's a moat.
This fort was finished directly after the Swedish siege of Copenhagen in the mid-17th century, and it also played a very large role in the bombardment of Copenhagen in the 19th century, which ultimately resulted in the surrender of the Danish fleet. Now, guests can walk through the grounds and up on the ramparts for free.
This place is pretty cool. You can get up on the ramparts and everything. You can go in. There's a museum here, and of course it's still an active military installation with barracks here. It kind of reminds us of the Akershus Fortress in Oslo, but one thing that Oslo didn't have is a windmill.
At one point, there were 16 windmills here to provide supplies of flour in case the fortress was under siege. Now, this is the only replica windmill that remains. We took in a few more views from the ramparts before heading down and over to the port side of the fortress.
So Katherine thinks this is dedicated to all the victims of freedom.
It reminds us of the freedom statue in Munich.
Yeah,
So why else would you make a statue?
It's winged victory, so it is the same.
Yes.
So yeah, a memorial to freedom.
And victory.
I see something very curious over here, so we have to go check it out.
Oh, I love when the ducks do your butts stick up in the air. Naturally, I'm drawn to the ducks for some reason.
Yeah.
They're just so entertaining to watch.
So I'm guessing you don't want to go for a sightseeing tour on that plane then?
No, I'm good.
So we're headed over to the Little Mermaid statue. Of course, Hans Christian Andersen was from the area, so there's this statue to commemorate him. And some people think that it's smaller than they thought it would be, but I don't know really what people are expecting, if they're expecting like a Statue of Liberty size thing out in the harbor here. I mean, it's a statue. It's on the shoreline. It's not super huge, but it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
The Little Mermaid statue is located directly outside of the Kastellet. This statue was unveiled in 1913 and was actually a gift to the city from Carl Jacobsen, son of J.C. Jacobsen of Carlsberg Brewery fame. Also in this area is the massive Danish Maritime Monument, or the Seafarer's Monument, which was inaugurated in 1928 as a memorial to the Dutch sailors lost in World War I. In this area, you can also see some Norse mythology in the form of this beautiful fountain. This water feature features a Norse goddess who turned her 4 sons into massive oxen and had them plow so deep that they pulled the land into the sea, creating the island of Zealand. One supposedly only needs to look at the size and shape of Lake Vänern in Sweden to see that this legend is true. Right next to this is the Museum of Danish Resistance, which showcases Danish freedom fighters and everyday resistance against occupation that could be found here during the Second World War. And it costs 110 Danish crowns, or about $16. We made our way inland a bit to get to our next location.
So it's still raining, so now we're going to check out this church behind us, which actually has the largest dome in Scandinavia. Pretty cool.
The Frederikskirke, also called the Marmorkirken in Danish, which means marble church, is located about 10 to 15 minutes walking distance from the Little Mermaid statue. This church, named after King Frederik V, who started its construction in 1749, was built in a brand new area of town. This area was filled with affluent people and large mansions, some of which would later become a palace. That being said, the church needed to be as grand as the surroundings, so it was believed that the inspiration for the church actually came from St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican. However, budget cuts and the death of the principal designer spelled disaster for this church, and it actually sat in ruins for over 140 years before finally being completed in 1894. Due to a newer, tighter budget, the original plans had to be amended a little bit, making the church slightly shorter, and by replacing marble in the plans with limestone. Ironically, it's still called the Marble Church. Just down the road from this church is the Amalienborg Castle, a collection of buildings that serves as the official residence of the Danish royal family. This area was built in the 18th century, and it's quite a spectacle to behold. There's a huge statue of Frederik V in the middle of the square, also called the equestrian statue for obvious reasons. And there's guards still present throughout the palace. Actually, there are 4 palaces here, one on each corner of the main square.
It's such a big square here. I wonder if they do anything with the space. You know?
Yeah. You were thinking maybe beheadings?
I don't know why that popped in my head. With the guards and, the people need entertainment.
They do actually have events here like changing of the guards. On this rainy day though, there were only a couple of guards on duty. About 10 minutes away from Amalienborg Palace is a large and open square.
Look at all the new trees they just planted.
Yeah. Very, very nice.
Yeah.
Little square here.
It's the King's New Square, Kongens Nyhavn. I think I said that right. It's a nice little square.
On this square, you can also find the Royal Theatre.
That's our favorite king, right?
Which one is he then?
Christian V.
Oh, yeah. Way better than the 4th. That's when they really took the administration up a notch. The 5th.
Yeah.
Right next to this is the Newport, or Nyhavn. This long canal is filled with ships, shops, and restaurants, and it was a brilliant place for us to look for some food for dinner.
It's just so charming.
I know. I love it.
All the boats and then all of the beautiful colors.
Yeah. And then the restaurants with all the outdoor seating. So nice.
Well, we found a little restaurant here. It wasn't hard, there's so many. But we're gonna do a Smørrebrød today. So it's like a fish with bread. Yeah, we've never had it, so we're gonna try it. When in Denmark. It started raining on me, so we're sitting next to each other now. Like all those people we hate in the restaurants.
Yeah.
Got a little soup, lobster soup. How's the soup?
So good.
Yeah, it looks really good. All right, appetizers down, but now we're really looking forward to this fish plate. Should have 4 different types of bread with like fish and stuff on it. So
It's a traditional kind of Danish dish.
Yeah, so we're interested to see if we like it. They serve it everywhere along this Newport area. First impressions?
It looks really good.
It does look really good. Looks like we got fried, we got pickled, we've got cold, we got hot. Looks really good. How was dinner?
That was so satisfying.
It was really
Perfect
good.
amount.
Yeah.
Really well plated and stuff. I don't know.
And it was delicious as well.
Delicious.
We made our way back through the rainy night to our hotel, excited to get out and explore more tomorrow. The next morning, we hopped on the subway and traveled into the northern part of the city. One thing we did have to say was that the public transportation system here was very easy to use, and it was actually really nice. Even though the city is very walker-friendly, we did take trains out to certain locations and then decide to walk back most of the time. This saved us a lot of time walking, and it made our short stay much more productive. Anyway, we exited the subway and found ourselves on the north side of a large park.
So we're walking through a park right now that actually used to be part of the fortress that kind of surrounded Copenhagen. It was a big ring, and part of it's still there, but now this park became a public park like 100 years ago. So walking through it. It's really beautiful here. Very green. One thing we do really like about European parks is they just kind of let it grow. It's not meticulously manicured and just like a field of grass.
These parks are just such a nice little getaway from the like city life and everything.
Yeah, it's super nice and quiet. I mean, we just walked by a bunch of children at play, so that's what you heard. But other than that, it's been really nice and quiet.
Yeah.
Very peaceful.
We also noticed that there were tons of museums in this area, and we soon found ourselves outside the National Gallery.
So if you're a fan of museums, this is the place in Copenhagen to go. We passed a park museum. Behind us is the National Art Gallery. There's also across the road a natural history museum. There is a botanical garden nearby. There's also the observatory and astrological center. There's everything in like a 2-block radius here.
So there's also a park museum ticket that you can get that gives you access to all 6 of the museums with just 1 ticket. It's about 40 euros, and you can buy it at any one of the museums. So it seems like a good deal.
So it's really cool to walk by, and all these buildings are so beautiful. But now we're going to go across the road to one of the old palaces that used to be used by royalty here. They actually have the crown jewels in this building, so it's pretty cool.
We walked across the street and into the Kongens Have, or the King's Garden. This is one of Copenhagen's oldest and most popular parks, attracting nearly 3 million visitors each year. This park was built in the 17th century as the private garden of Christian IV, mainly for his Rosenborg Castle, which still stands in the park grounds. This park is incredibly well manicured, and it's a peaceful and serene place. One of the sights here are the 2 main avenues lined with tall lime trees.
Do you like the dark shade of all these like hedge trees?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Another attraction here is the Rose Garden, with some quaint little paths and several different types of roses.
Do you like the flowers?
It's really cool. Yeah. So yeah, this garden, it's a rose garden that was designed in 1963, but it was based on
Like illustrations, right?
illustrations from the 16th century. Pretty cool.
There are also tons of flowers and other plants all over the place here, including several other little gardens.
It's a nice little garden, huh?
Yeah, it is.
We don't know if this one was also planned based on illustrations or plans from the original, but it looks like it could be.
Yeah.
The gardens also feature some other impressive statues, although Katherine seemed to have her own opinions about them.
This one looks pretty regal. This one looks, as Katherine said, derpy.
Yeah, I don't get the designs with these lions. They look kind of regal from the behind, and then you go and see their faces. It's a little graphic for my taste. We don't even know what's going on with this one. It's a lot.
Of course, the most interesting attraction here is the Rosenborg Castle itself. This castle was originally built as the summer house for Christian IV, and it was completed in its current form in 1624. It served as the royal Danish residence until 1710, when it was made home to the royal collections. Because of this, it's very well preserved on the inside today. For 130 crowns, or a little over $18, you can take a tour and even see the crown jewels. You can also find a virtual tour of the entire castle on the castle website. It's an absolutely beautiful building, and it's impressive how well the inside of this castle has been preserved. After our time in the King's Garden, we made our way closer to the city center, stopping at another main attraction, the Round Tower.
So now we're going to an attraction. It's called the Round Tower. And it's basically a 17th century tower. It looks like it's kind of attached to a church, but it's a planetarium and like a science center. And it doesn't have stairs. It has a
It's
ramp.
like a spiral ramp, I think.
Yeah, so it's pretty unique in that way. It's not very expensive to get into. So we're going to go, and you can get amazing views of Copenhagen from the top.
This tower was built in 1637 by, again, Christian IV. It was the first part of the so-called Trinity complex, composed of the observatory on top of the tower, the Trinity Church itself, and the university library, which would be housed in the attic of the church. We started our climb up the nearly 300 meters of ramp that would take us to 35 meters above street level.
So far, so good.
Yeah, it's just so odd, isn't it? A lot easier to walk up than stairs, we will say that.
Yeah, we assume that it's probably so that they could like move carts up and down to bring supplies.
Yeah, up to the planetarium / lookout tower.
Yeah.
Inside the tower is an exhibition hall, which is used for displays and events. At this point in time, there was an exhibition on the Danish wolf population and migrations.
We're learning a lot about wolves in Denmark. It's interesting.
How they've evolved from bad predators to
This little guy. Purse not included. The bathrooms here are a little bit nicer than this now.
We also took a moment to look at the library hall, which is close to the public. From there, we made our way up to the observatory and the lookout platform. Since none of the buildings in Copenhagen are more than a few stories tall, we got some absolutely amazing views of the surrounding areas. They even have maps up here to help you understand what you're looking at.
It's really cool up here. Great view of the city.
Yeah.
After leaving the round tower, we headed further into the city, walking along one of the premier shopping areas in Copenhagen, the Strøget pedestrian zone. You can find so many different shops here, and this pedestrian area traces its way right through the center of the old town. We even did a little souvenir shopping here. From there, we made our way to another one of the royal residences, the Christiansborg Palace. Parts of this castle were built a very long time ago in the 12th century, outdating many of the other buildings around here. This castle actually sits on the so-called Castle Island, and it's surrounded by a garden, several museums, and even the building where the stock exchange used to be in the 17th century. We crossed over the water to get to the Christianshavn neighborhood. This area is very nice and contains many shops, restaurants, and a mix of traditional and modern-looking buildings. There are also several canals here that run through the city, and we saw boats everywhere. There's even canal tours that you can take through this area. On this side of the water, you can also find the remains of the old fortification wall that we talked about earlier. Unlike the wall remains in the park, this fortification is largely intact. What was once a large barrier meant to protect the city is now a place where citizens can take nice long walks and bike rides. It's really a beautiful area. It was lunchtime now, so we had to get some food. We found a nice little restaurant in Christianshavn and sat down to eat.
So we stopped to get some lunch, and of course the Carlsbergs are flowing.
We had some traditional seafood dishes, and they were absolutely amazing. Outside of the restaurant, we found ourselves at our last attraction of the day, the Church of Our Savior. This 17th century church is special to tourists because you can actually climb up to the very top of the unique spiral tower to get some amazing views of Copenhagen below. The spire has a spiral staircase that turns 3 times on the outside of the tower, bringing climbers to a height of nearly 90 meters. If you want to visit the tower, just keep in mind that it's 400 steps to the top, making it a very laborious undertaking. Entry to the church itself is free, but to climb to the top, it'll cost you 69 crowns per person, or about $10 US. From there, we started our walk back towards the city center.
So that's pretty much it for this video here in Copenhagen. It's a beautiful city, we've really enjoyed it, but we're not done yet. Tonight we're actually going over to Tivoli, the amusement park that inspired Walt Disney to create his parks. So be sure to join us for that one.
Bye.